Some of the inconvenient truths for tax day from this nice post over at crooksandliars.com. Over 95% of working households got a tax cut under the Obama administration. Only 2% of Tea Partiers know that Obama cut their taxes. The New York Times survey. 52% of Tea Partiers think that their taxes are fair, and they think that their tax level is double what it actually is. 1% of American families earned 24% of all income earned in the United States last year. 50%, and that same 1% earned 57% of all capital income, dividends and interest and things like that. The 400 richest taxpayers in America saw their incomes double over the last decade and saw their taxes cut in half. And corporate taxes have plummeted as a share of GDP. Now, you'd think in the face of all this that there might be a movement to tax the rich and the corporations so we could cut the taxes on the average working people. But I don't know. Ryan Hecker, contractfromamerica.org.
Yes, I'm here. Yep.
Good to have you with us. Contract from America. You've got this document that first of all, over at your website, contractfromamerica.org, I see the, donate now, and then I see a bunch of your sponsors down at the bottom, which is kind of a who's who of the right-wing funders of the Tea Party groups. Is this a business that you've started, like the Tea Party Express is?
We have no money. This is a completely coalition effort. This is it's really everyone's been volunteering their services to build the website. I've spent thousands of hours outside of my own job, and we've had a lot of other volunteers who have just. So you
really believe this stuff? You're not one of these guys who is part of like Mars Russo, the PR firm the Republican PR firm that basically created the Tea Party Express movement.
I'm a national coordinator of Tea Party Patriots, which is very much a grassroots umbrella group for hundreds of Tea Parties around the country.
What are your just anecdotally, and then I want to get to your contract from America, the details of it. What do you think about Tea Party Express and the fact that Politico yesterday outed the fact that this Republican PR firm organized it as a money-making vehicle, that they've made a couple $1 million off it so far, and that you've got a bunch of Republican fat cats in the background pulling the strings?
Yeah, I think that they're that's not that really the power in this movement is with the local groups, and I think that I think the media generally, I think this nation as DC as a whole kind of tries to find a national leader to this. So they look at Tea Party Express, they look at other national groups to find a leader, but this is all like local groups that are really running the show.
But Tea Party Express has a lot of money. I mean, that bus that Sarah Palin was standing in front of yesterday must have been, $250,000 to buy one of those brand new buses and paint it like that?
I don't know what I haven't looked at their finances. But what I want to stress is that the Tea Party movement is not that organization or any one organization. Right. It's really a dispersed grassroots movement that's really, I don't think has happened before. In this kind of way, and I think it's because of new media, and I think it's just it's a really seminal moment, I think.
Well, if there is an analog, and if it genuinely is, a grassroots movement, I think that probably the parallel might be the anti-war movement of the '60s, where the people who were opposed to that were constantly saying, "Oh, these SDS guys, they're actually funded by the Soviet Union," which was nonsense. Sort of like, these Tea Party guys, Ryan's getting his bucks from the RNC, and in fact, you say you're not. So let's get into the details here. We're talking with Ryan Hecker, contractfromamerica.org, and not the Tea Party Express, the Tea Party Patriots. You're number one, protect the Constitution. Require every bill that Congress puts out to say that this is the provision of the Constitution that gives them the power to do that. Isn't that already intrinsic in all legislation, given that since 1803 the Supreme Court has had the authority to overturn any legislation, since the Marbury versus Madison case, as being unconstitutional?
Well, I think we're talking about dynamics between kind of the expansion of kind of the Commerce Clause and other things.
I'd say the General Welfare Clause is actually the one that probably most things are going to fall under.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the big issue is we want congressmen and senators to think about it when they're debating these laws about whether or not they're constitutional. We want them to include the Constitution in their mindset.
Yeah.
But,
I'm not arguing with you on that one. I think that's a good one. Number 2, reject cap and trade. So you're down with ExxonMobil.
What do you say?
Well, you want to reject cap and trade, so which I have some problems with, because the way that they're suggesting implementing it, I think is going to be a big giveaway to the banksters on Wall Street. But in principle, the idea of raising the price of carbon to jumpstart things like solar and wind and biomass and tidal energy has worked very well in Denmark with wind power. They're up to almost 20% of the power in the nation. In Germany, they've produced over the last 10 years the equivalent of 8 nuclear power plants worth of electricity just by encouraging people to put solar panels on the roofs of their houses. Why not do something like that here?
Because look, nuclear. There's a strong kind of regulatory structure against nuclear energy right now.
No, actually, nuclear energy couldn't exist in the United States if we didn't subsidize it. The Price-Anderson Act says that you and I are insuring the nuclear power plants. If that went away and they had to go into the private market for insurance, they couldn't get it and they would cease to exist. Nuclear power plants are the biggest socialist program in America right now.
Well, what I would say with cap and trade is that, it's government engineering human behavior. It's telling us,
of course,
it's increasing our taxes. The taxes of average Americans, of middle-class Americans, probably lower-class Americans, just because the government wants to tell them you have to behave in a certain way. And we just find that kind of unacceptable. We think that people should be able to make economic choices, that's kind of fundamental.
Enact fundamental tax reform. This is item number. We're just going through your list here, your 10 items in your contract from America.org. Enact fundamental tax reform. You want to have a tax code that's no more than 4,500 words, the length of the Constitution. I think a noble goal, but do you want to get rid of things like most corporate tax deductions, so that if I'm running a business, I can't deduct the cost of advertising or the cost of research and development? Do you want to do away with things like tax breaks for having children for average Americans, or tax breaks for having a mortgage? There's a lot of the tax code that actually makes sense.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of there's a lot of the tax code that doesn't make sense either.
For example.
Well, I think there's a lot of corporate, there are various of corporate tax structures and deductions and just so much stuff that's been added on and added on and added on.
Yeah.
And, different pieces of legislation that we really don't know what, tax code is so huge, we don't even know what's in it, really.
Yeah. Ryan, I'm with you on a lot of that. And if you're talking about things like the tax break that the Bush administration put in, actually the first one was the Reagan administration, and then another one came with Clinton, and then another one came with Bush, that spiff corporations when they move our jobs overseas, for example, or let them hide money overseas, so that ExxonMobil, the most profitable corporation in the history of the planet, that last year made a $46 billion profit, paid not one penny in U.S. income taxes. If that's the kind of thing you're talking about, I'm with you.
And I want to add that these are not my ideas. Like, I didn't write this in my basement. These are ideas that were submitted by people, and over 500,000 people, or close to 500,000 people voted. And these are the final ideas that they've come up with. This may not be my perfect top 10 list. There are others of those 21 ideas that I may have thought personally I would have liked in there.
Sure.
But these are from the people. So
Number 5, restore fiscal responsibility and constitutionally limited government in Washington. You're talking about creating a blue ribbon task force. Isn't that more federal government, a blue ribbon task force?
Well, I think if the end goal is that government is cut, then I think I don't imagine it spending that much money, and I would imagine the
53% of our taxes this year are going to go to pay for the Pentagon. We've got a military budget in the United States that's larger than that of every other country in the world combined. Well, I'm all in favor of cutting our federal government, the size of it, and that's where I would start. Where would you start?
Well, I would start with a lot of the well, first of all, I'd start with a lot of the pork. I think another one on the list is cut pork. So I think you're right. I think
number 9 is stop the pork. But that's the earmarks account for less than 1% of the federal budget every year. So
I mean, and I think I would. I mean, I think there is. I think there's a lot of areas in terms of. I mean, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of pork in military spending and general spending.
Yeah, the Pentagon's lost $2 trillion they can't account for.
Citizens for Sound, Citizens Against Government Waste came up with a great list that showed that there's a lot of anonymous money going to the military and other business and other organizations.
Sure, and we've got a lot of companies that are going in and giving a lot of money to politicians, both Republicans and Democrats, and that they invest $1 million, they make $1 billion. And
I mean,
okay, so here we are,
Yeah.
populists together. Defund, repeal, and replace government-run health care. This is one that I'm kind of scratching my head about. The government-run health care program, the only one that I know of that is actually run by the government is the Veterans Administration and TRICARE for the military, where doctors work for the government, the hospitals are owned by the government, and it's run by the government. And that's the true socialist medicine in the United States. Are you suggesting that we should do away with that?
No, I think we're suggesting that we do away with the massive government expansion that was passed very recently, which is a government takeover. It allows pretty much for a health czar and a committee to pretty much control the insurance rates in this country. And they already,
So you think the insurance companies should be able to charge us whatever they damn well please, and Stephen Hemsley, with his $700 million for 5 years' work as the CEO of United Healthcare, should be able to make, like his predecessor, Bill McGuire, $1.7 billion off my health insurance dollars?
Well, the question with that is why? Why? I'm sorry, there's a fire.
No, that's okay, Ryan. I think, and we only have about a minute left here, but for me the question is, who do I trust my health care dollars to a guy like Stephen Hemsley, who's making $700 million for 5 years' work, telling me that I can't have that treatment, or some government bureaucrat who's making $60,000 a year in Washington D.C. and just trying to do his job, like with Medicare?
Well, we need to expand. We need to go across state lines and allow for real competition. The reason why these insurance companies are making such big windfalls is because of regulations.
No, if you go across state lines,
it's
a myth, Ryan. Check it out. It's the same thing with the credit card companies. The reason that they want to go across state lines is so that they can go to the state that regulates them least.